So hi everybody, my name is Dr. DeVries Jordan. I'm an Associate Professor of Political Science and Chair of the Division of Behavioral and Social Sciences. I want to welcome all of you today. I also want to thank the Pride Alliance, the Gender, Sexuality, and Women's Studies Program, and the LGBTQ+ Advisory Committee for your support in putting the program together. So welcome to our 11th annual Coming Out for Equality convocation, which is in support of National Coming Out Day. That was Monday. Today we celebrate people coming out as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, asexual, genderqueer, gender fluid, gender diverse, or gender nonconforming. We also celebrate people coming out to show their support as allies of the LGBTQ community. I'm going to start off by making some remarks about my own coming out experiences and the state of LGBTQ policy in the US. And I'm going to be followed by speakers Dr. Tasha Alston, Izzy Boyce, Marlene Lang, and Eileen Doherty. I also especially want to thank Professor Lang because she's one of the most long-standing members of our LGBTQ Advisory Committee, and we haven't had a chance to thank you for that, but I wanted to make sure to say that. Okay, so as is the case for many people, the first efforts that I made to come out at the end of high school and during my undergraduate studies were met with rejection, denial, and a lack of understanding. As a result, I went back into the closet for several years, and it wasn't until I was in graduate school that I started coming out to friends and family again. I had one friend who I actually sent a message on Facebook last night because I was thinking about her. She was willing to accompany me on a difficult road trip to have a challenging conversation with my family, and her support meant the world to me. As an ally, especially when the response that I initially received was not what I had hoped for. Although I felt alone and misunderstood, my friend had listened to me, reminded me that they cared for me unconditionally, helped me to have compassion for the journey that my family members needed to go through, supported me at my lowest moments, and helped me to find something to laugh about when I needed to be lifted up. I was grateful not to be alone on the trip home as I wrestled with mixed emotions, including elation, despair, disappointment, anger, just about every feeling. So the support my friend provided made a very big difference in my decision to come out at that moment. I might have chickened out, to be honest with you, if they weren't with me. Often people ask me what they should do or say to be the best ally. The truth is that showing up, listening, being authentic, and non-judgmental, providing unconditional support, acceptance, and empathy, those are things that are crucial. Perhaps more so than saying just the right thing, right? It's not what you say, it's being there, it's being the support. Such allyship can be very transformative for someone who's coming out. And even to this day, I have chills thinking about it, to be honest with you. Today, it's about 18 years since I started to come out to friends and family, nearly a decade since my wife and I celebrated our marriage with friends and family, including my parents. My father's first wife came out as a lesbian after they divorced. So for him, he blamed the women's liberation movement on her identity. So I grew up with that. It was a really big deal for him to come to the point of acceptance, to be able to celebrate our marriage, to love our son, who's almost 5. And so when he died this year, it was very peaceful for me to know that his life ended that way. So even though there have been bumps along the way, my family has come to accept who I am and embrace my family, my rainbow family, with unconditional love. To be able to be your authentic self and celebrate who you are and the rainbow family you love, without constantly feeling you have to censor parts of who you are, parts of your life, and walk around tiptoes around other people. It's incredibly freeing and liberating, and it's come with tremendous joy for me and those around me. I also am grateful for the extended network of neighbors, friends, and colleagues here at Pitt-Bradford that have become part of my chosen family. In our queer communities, we often also have chosen families who are as important in supporting us as our other families are. As a result of this support, I was able to come out on a professional basis as well and actively pursue research scholarship on LGBT and marriage equality policymaking and activism, and I was tenured based on that research. Moreover, I've served on the LGBTQ caucus and LGBT status committee of the American Political Science Association. helping to advance the interests of LGBTQ political scientists and research concerning LGBTQ rights. These experiences have been both enriching and gratifying. Although my own coming out process hasn't been linear, it's been extremely liberating to be able to be myself, both personally and professionally, and the support I received from allies was instrumental in my own transformation. So in addition to highlighting the importance of allies, another thing that I wanted to share about my personal story is the diversity of experiences that people have in coming out. There's no right way or wrong way. Some people come out as children or youth, some people come out as octogenarians, and some people never come out. Not everyone is out to everyone in their lives. People vary in who they feel safe coming out to and who they want to be out with, whether it be family, friends, colleagues, or acquaintances. Most people want to determine for themselves who they want to be out with and not to be outed intentionally or inadvertently by others. And if you see someone unintentionally outing someone, try to pull them aside and talk to them about it. In some ways, you're always coming out, and how you come out may change as you grow, interact with other people, develop greater consciousness about your own identity. For some people, being out is also about being an advocate and getting involved politically, while for others, their personal identity is something they prefer to keep part of their private lives and not their public lives. Each coming out journey has inherent value and beauty, and it's a path toward self-acceptance and self-love, as it is important that we embrace the nuances of each person's experiences. In celebrating people's ability to come out of the closet and be themselves, it's important to recognize that though there have been many gains, both in LGBTQ policy and public opinion in the United States during the last 20 years, we've gone from decriminalization to marriage equality in less than 20 years. It's pretty amazing. There are still too many youth who face rejection and the loss of financial and emotional support from their families when they come out. There's a huge need for LGBTQ+ inclusive foster families and supportive housing and shelter. The past few years have seen highs and lows in terms of policy in this country. During the Obama administration, marriage equality was legalized nationally, inclusive policies were embraced in education and justice, the bans on military service for LGBT people were ended. However, a wave of backlash occurred with the passage of state legislation restricting access to restrooms and locker facilities for transgender people, and many executive policy changes were overturned during the Trump administration. During the incumbent Biden administration, these executive policy changes are again being reverted. It's evident that in the absence of a Congress and a president willing to work together to pass bills at the federal level, such as federal non-discrimination legislation, LGBTQ people have to continue relying on the courts and the whims of each presidential administration when it comes to certain policy domains. One of the key developments that you all have to be aware of is the U.S. Supreme Court decision in Bostock versus Clayton County that was issued in June of 2020. Many people didn't notice it because of the election campaign that was going on. That ruling by the Supreme Court ruled that Title IX's prohibition on discrimination on the basis of sex extends to include discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. That's a huge decision. And the government was initially slow, unsurprisingly, to interpret the ramifications of this decision, particularly because we were in the middle of the election year and particularly based on who was in power at that time. So it wasn't until June of this year that the U.S. Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights announced that the court decision would be implemented in providing schools with support to create inclusive learning environments and to eliminate educational discrimination targeting LGBTQ students, which is still very common even in our community. We're working right now in Olean on this specific issue. So it's very important when you interact with other people that they're aware of their rights. In New York, we even have state laws, state anti-discrimination laws. Now there's a federal decision. These can be used also to advocate for people's rights when they encounter problems. So what's key is that regardless of whether you live in a state that has passed non-discrimination bills like New York, or if you live in one that hasn't, like Pennsylvania, there is now a U.S. Supreme Court decision that extends these protections to the queer community when it comes to employment, education, public accommodation, etc. So the federal government is in the process of implementing this decision, but the LGBTQ community also has to serve as an advocate for itself in challenging inequity when it occurs. I encourage all of you to stay engaged with these policies so that you can also advocate for greater inclusion. And I now ask that you give a warm welcome to our next speaker, Dr. Tasha Alston.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the University of Pittsburgh at Bradford's Pride Alliance Coming Out for Equality Convocation. My name is Dr. Tasha Alston, and I'm the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer at the university. Again, welcome. Thank you on behalf of Interim President Rick Esch, the University of Pittsburgh at Bradford cabinet members, and the Office of Diversity and Inclusion. Thank you for allowing me to join you today. Today we celebrate the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer individuals who are part of this wonderful campus community at the University of Pittsburgh at Bradford. We celebrate allies, family members, and community members that have paved the way towards social justice for the betterment of society as a whole. We celebrate the historical figures that continuously persevered through challenges to obtain diversity, equity, and inclusion to ensure that we could be here today. We celebrate the advancements made by simultaneously recognizing the continuous efforts required to ensure that all community members feel welcome, valued, supported, included, and affirmed. Today, at the University of Pittsburgh at Bradford, we celebrate your strength, we celebrate your resilience, we celebrate you. Thank you.
Greetings. So my name is Isaiah Boyce. I prefer to go by Izzy, and my pronouns are he, him, and I'm a bisexual. I wore the funny shirt today, so I figured it was appropriate. And I'm a Pitt student here, if you couldn't tell. I know I look absolutely like I'm in my 20s. I am, I swear. So I'll admit, when I first agreed to talk here today, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. There was just like hey, we need someone to talk. You want to do it? And I'm like, sure, I'm in the community, I guess. But that actually turned into a nice reflection point in my life. So I don't have a particularly interesting story as a member of the alphabet community. I've never had a hard time coming to grips with liking men or being like, oh yes, I am now bisexual. Go figure. I was like, oh, okay, this is it now, I guess. And I don't have any funny coming out stories, like nothing silly or anything or hard at that moment. So, and I don't have any experiences with prejudice or harassment based on my sexuality. And it was in that moment where I realized that's really awesome. Like, for me to be able to just be like, yeah, this is it now, and everyone just be like, okay. Like, that's great. And I realize I am so fortunate that I am able to live in a world or on this campus where I can just be myself and I didn't have to go through any hardships to become that. Because I'm gonna be real honest, I'm kind of lazy. Like, I'm not an activist type. I'm not an active type for that matter either. So, if I had to scrape and claw my way for equality, I probably would have gone back into the closet, like she mentioned, just hid myself for a little bit, because I'm not the type to really try and go against the flow of a lot of things. And so it was really a blessing to be able to just kind of exist and not have that be challenged. And I'm very grateful for all the people who have come before me in this community and as members of the community, all the activists, historical figures who have fought for a world where I can just exist without having to fight for it. And so I offer you my greatest thanks from the depths of my big gay heart. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. It's good to be back among some of my favorite people. I have retired here from Pitt, but it's good to be back. My name is Marlene Lang. I'm a former composition teacher here, and I am here to share with you why I am an ally. When I volunteered to share why I'm an ally, I thought the words would come easy. After writing and rewriting, I realized I was wrong because my story is about more people than just me, and I struggled with what to leave in and what to leave out. Finally, I arrived at 3 lessons or conclusions. Number 1, I'm an ally because I have seen firsthand what I believe is the damage caused by self-denial. And I could be wrong about this. I'm not a psychologist, but based on my experience. Number 2, I'm an ally because I was called on to practice what I preached. I have 3 children. They kind of expected me to do what I said I was going to do. And I am an ally to make up for not recognizing some of the stress and the grief that were caused. Looking back, I've seen the damage caused when my husband realized he was gay, but did not want to be, because of the perceived shame and stigma. Alcoholism, excessive smoking, and I believe prescription drug abuse, culminating in either an accidental overdose or a suicide attempt, which left him in a coma for 2 days. Shortly after he came out, in a rather odd way, he just left emails to other men up on the computer for me to find. Shortly after that, we separated. He moved away, met his future partner, stopped drinking, stopped smoking, and was with his future partner for like 20-some years. I kept the house, the 2 dogs, and the cat, and my 1 child, who was still at home, stayed with me. I could be wrong. Maybe he would have been a miserable alcoholic anyways, but I know that our lives have been much better since he was living his authentic life. Okay. We had 3 children, and here's where the practice what you preach comes in. 2 of the children were grown and out of the house, in fact, out of the country for various reasons, and 1 was still at home. I tried my best to raise my children to accept all people, regardless of race, sexual orientation, gender, blah, 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 all those good things, which is easier said than done when one is angry, stunned, and hurt. Gobsmacked, actually. I just did not see this coming at all. However, I must have succeeded because none have turned against their father. His partner became a second grandfather to our grandchildren, and my children have all become allies also. I think that God, in whatever form you see them or not, has a sly sense of humor. You say you accept everyone? Well, how about this? You're going to be called on it. You're going to be asked to prove to live your life. Finally, I wonder how I missed this. We were married for 20 years. And I never stopped really to think about why he was so miserable. I was absolutely stunned at the time. I knew he wasn't happy. I knew he was a functioning alcoholic. I had no idea why. And again, I could be wrong. But again, I'm looking at my experiences and his experiences. I wanted to be more open and aware. Being on the LGBTQ plus committee as an ally has helped me be more understanding and aware with my students. I've taken safe zone training and become much more of an activist. It's been a pleasure to have met so many students and teachers here at Pitt and I thank you for inviting me. I want to close with a saying by Ram Dass, the philosopher and Timothy Leary friend. But he said, we are all just walking each other home. And that is what I hope for all of us, that we realize that. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Eileen Doherty. I am the treasurer for the Pride Alliance. And I want to once again thank everybody for coming. It's so amazing to see how many allies and people of the community are on this campus that are willing to respect everybody and just come and support. And I also want to thank our speakers once again for our amazing speeches. They are really moving, and it's amazing to hear from everybody. It's also so refreshing to remember stories like these, ones full of love, kindness, and respect, are becoming a more common narrative in our society, especially now where the past few years have felt like every one step forward is 2 steps back. But I urge everyone to remember those victories we still have. The fact that we are allowed to have this event with no persecution from the community, that we have a Pride Alliance on campus, that we have teachers that are allowed to express their sexuality without fear of losing their jobs or being persecuted by this community around us. These were once huge victories and are now slowly becoming part of our day-to-day life. And I hope you will all join us in our march to the Panther statue in solidarity of those who marched long before us, and as a promise that we will continue to march for those long after us. Thank you.